Birmingham was roaring. But this wasn't the kind of roar you'd expect at an Ozzy Osbourne show. This was broken with thousands chanting, "Ozzy," in unison, not to welcome him to the stage but to say goodbye. The Prince of Darkness, the man who'd defined decades of heavy metal, was giving the city he loved one final wave. But it didn't end there. In fact, things would get even more unexpected. Because as the curtains closed on Ozzy's life, we came to the startling realization there's much more we didn't even know about his final days. July 5, 2025, at Villa Park in Birmingham. The crowd knew they were witnessing something they might never see again. Ozzy Osbourne back in his hometown for what would be his last time on stage, or so they thought. He did not storm out like the madman of legend. He was brought out slowly, seated in a black leather chair, his eyes scanning the audience as if committing every face to memory. Some say they saw him smile. Others swear they saw something else in his expression, something they could not explain. The setlist that night was a journey through decades, but one song in particular left the stadium silent. No one knew why it was chosen, and even fewer knew what it would mean just days later. Midway through the show, the lights shifted. A few shadows appeared in the smoke behind him. When the fog cleared, people gasped. It was Black Sabbath. Not a tribute band nor a recording. The real thing. But there was something different about the way they played together, almost as if they knew this performance wasn't for the fans, but for someone else entirely.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Well, we were just as we were leaving, Jamie told us that Ozzy died.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as we were leaving. Speaking of which, speaking of the guy who... He burned the candles at both ends, lad.
Dude, he just
performed. Yeah.
It always happens like this. It's like he did... there cannot not be a correlation between hanging up the job and death. He did the final Black Sabbath show. This is it. All four original guys.
Uh-huh.
He died 2 weeks later?
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking insane, man.
Tears were shed. Voices cracked. And yet, in the middle of all that emotion, there was one thing no one in the audience noticed, something happening off stage that would change the story of that night forever. The concert ended. The crowd cheered. But what happened next didn't make the headlines. At least not yet. Because just 3 weeks later, the world would wake up to news that would make this final concert feel like only the beginning of Ozzy's real farewell. And buried in that farewell was a detail so strange, it left even his closest friends asking, why would they do that? Of July 22, 2025, the world woke to the kind of news no one wanted to believe. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself, was gone. The announcement came directly from his family, posted quietly on social media, and within minutes it was everywhere. They confirmed what fans feared. Complications from Parkinson's and pneumonia had finally taken their toll. His death certificate carried just 3 simple words under occupation: songwriter, performer, and rock legend.
Now, you've said you'll never retire, and I'm looking at Ozzy Osbourne, who literally did his big homecoming gig and then opted out, shall we say.
Yeah.
Did Ozzy's death give you pause in any way?
I was on my way to the stage when I heard about it. And I went, oh, that's not right, you know. He just did this thing. I saw him. He was singing well, you know. But, you know, when it finally hit, it was just one of those, yeah, you don't, even though you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Especially with Ozzy, especially with certain guys in rock, where you go, you know, it certainly hasn't been well for a while.
No.
But, I mean, what a...
Within hours, headlines from every corner of the globe were rolling in. The BBC broke their usual programming to air a tribute montage. Rolling Stone's homepage went black except for a single photograph of Ozzy in his youth, hair wild, eyes alight with that mischievous grin. Rock stations cleared their playlists and went wall-to-wall Black Sabbath and solo hits. By midday, the grief had shifted from disbelief to something far more personal. People realized they weren't just losing a rock icon, they were losing the soundtrack to their lives. For some, Ozzy was the teenage rebellion blaring from a bedroom stereo. For others, he was the voice that got them through the darkest nights.
I've had it all my life, and the Parkinson's I have, it's not like the Michael J. Fox one. What is it called, sir?
It's called Parkin 2. It's a gene that Ozzy was born with. And of course, Ozzy couldn't get anything normal. It's very rare. And its path isn't like normal Parkinson's that we all know.
The flu, what's explaining, sir?
Okay, when Ozzy had his... Will you stop picking the nail polish off those bloody nails?
But if you thought the emotion peaked there, you'd be wrong. Because what followed in the days after would turn his passing from a celebrity obituary into something else. How do you send off a man whose life filled stadiums and airwaves? The answer came quickly, but it wouldn't be anything like a polished Hollywood memorial. Instead, it would spill out into the streets of his hometown. Fans, family, and even strangers would gather in a way no one had seen before, and the scale of it would leave even his closest friends stunned.
The system. And at the end of the show, I just said, everybody, let's say goodnight to Ozzy. And everybody just, Ozzy, Ozzy. So, I mean, he was a very beloved character in rock.
I mean, tell me about your relationship with him. You knew him, you worked with him, you knew him.
We did shows together. He was not one of those guys that I would say one of my best friends, but we were close when we saw each other. We would go, oh, good to see you, man, da, 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 da. We didn't hang in the same sort of people, you know. I knew Sharon, I think, more than I knew Ozzy, because I'd met Sharon before for other things.
On July 30th, 2025, Birmingham woke up to a sky as gray as the stone buildings lining its streets. The air felt heavier than usual, as if the city itself knew it was about to say goodbye to one of its own. By mid-morning, roads were closed and barriers set up, but still, thousands managed to press in on both sides. People stood shoulder to shoulder, clutching flowers, photographs, and worn-out vinyl sleeves. Some had traveled hundreds of miles, sleeping in cars overnight just to claim a spot. The funeral procession began at the edge of the city and moved slowly toward its most symbolic stop, the Black Sabbath Bridge, the landmark unofficially renamed years earlier in honor of the band that put Birmingham on the global map. As the hearse approached, a hush fell over the crowd, broken only by the faint sound of changes playing from a portable speaker nearby. Fans lifted peace signs into the air. Bouquets rained down, landing gently on the black car that carried Ozzy to his final rest. Behind the hearse, the family followed in a line of sleek black vehicles. Sharon sat closest to the window, her face pale and unreadable, flanked by their children who looked equally shattered. They waved softly to the crowd, but their eyes stayed fixed on the road ahead. If you think the crowds were moved, wait until you see who spoke next. At the city center, the procession stopped. A stage had been set up for the public memorial, framed by massive black and white images of Ozzy across the decades. One by one, friends, fellow musicians, and civic leaders took the microphone. Who from Ozzy's inner circle broke down when it mattered most? That answer came in the most unexpected way, but the real shock wasn't the tears. It was the words themselves. Words that cut through the music, the fame, and the chaos, and reminded everyone exactly who Ozzy had been when the lights went out. We'll reveal exactly what was said, and whose voice cracked mid-eulogy. If the streets of Birmingham had been a roar of public grief, the next day was its opposite, quiet, contained, almost sacred. On July 31st, Ozzy's family hosted a private memorial at their Buckinghamshire home, far from cameras and crowds. This was not for fans or press releases. This was for the people who had truly lived life alongside him. Security kept the property sealed, but through the trees, you could just make out the slow procession of black cars arriving one by one. Tony Iommi was among the first to step out, his usual stage confidence replaced with something softer. The man who'd helped create heavy metal walked with his head lowered, clutching a small bouquet of white lilies. Even Gene Simmons couldn't hold it in later.
Well, I remember the man, 1974, we were both trying to forge our paths, and we actually played on the same bill. And I will tell you that the masses, the fans are grieving. What can you say? It's just broken hearts. And when I tell you my heart, my prayers, and millions of others to Sharon and the kids, people think of him as the Prince of Darkness. And, on stage, of course, this huge persona, a giant. But at the same time a loving father and a dead.
Bill Ward followed, moving with the careful steps of a man both physically and emotionally weighed down. There were no photo ops, no speeches on arrival, just long embraces and whispered condolences. Sharon Osbourne, dressed in deep black, greeted each guest with quiet dignity, her composure almost surreal given the gravity of the moment. Among the attendees was Metallica's Robert Trujillo, who had toured with Ozzy and held deep respect for the Prince of Darkness. After the service, Robert told a reporter in a hushed voice, "Geezer broke down." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Hearing Sabbath finally speak, raw emotion replacing the thunder of guitar riffs, was something no one in that room would forget. Geezer Butler was never the most outspoken member of the band. His bass lines spoke louder than his words. Yet on this day he stood before Ozzy's casket, hands trembling slightly, and began to speak. The room leaned in when Geezer spoke up. He talked about their first meeting in Birmingham as teenagers, about their shared dream of escaping the factories, about the chaotic tours, the fights, the reconciliations, and how through all of it, Ozzy never stopped making him laugh. Then as he reached the end, his voice cracked. What did Geezer reveal last that stopped everyone in their tracks?
Met Jack a couple of times. Ozzy and I did 4 or 5 things together. He sang on Hey Stupid, and did a lot of, we did Brazil together, a soccer stadium down there together, and things like that. But there was never that, let me call Ozzy.
Right.
There was never that thing. I just respected him, and I think we had a mutual respect for each other. We had a lot of the same players. I mean, the great thing about being a lead singer without a band is that you get your pick of, who the guitar players are, who the drummers are, who the bass players are. So
even those who had been in this industry for decades, who had attended countless memorials, found themselves unable to speak. Some bowed their heads. Others openly wept. Sharon reached for her children's hands. The days following Ozzy Osbourne's funeral brought an outpouring of grief and love from every corner of the world. Yet it was his son, Jack Osbourne, who managed to capture decades of life with his father in one unforgettable moment.
See, what's your son's name?
Jack.
Hey, Jack, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Too.
How cool is it having Ozzy as a dad?
Jack posted an emotional tribute on Instagram saying, "My heart has hurt too much," he wrote on Instagram. He was so many things to so many people, but I was so lucky and blessed to be a part of a very small group that got to call him Dad. My heart is full of so much sadness and sorrow, but also so much love and gratitude. He also added, 14,501 days with my dad. He did not measure their time together in years but in days. Every single day mattered to him. My heart has hurt too much, Jack said softly, but I would not trade a single one of them. These were not the polished words of a public figure. They were the unfiltered thoughts of a son losing his hero. The tribute spread quickly across social media. Fans around the globe reposted his words, adding their own memories of Ozzy. One fan wrote, "I have been a Sabbath fan for 6,000 days. Jack had his father for more than twice that, and it still was not enough." It made people stop and think about their own time with loved ones. How many of us could count the days we truly cherished? And would we even want to?
It started to, when I was in my early teens, when I really got into music, and all the bands that I really liked, back in the day when you would read them by, Rolling Stone or Kerrang or Hit Parade, any music magazine, a lot of these bands would say, my dad was a huge influence, or Black Sabbath was a huge influence. And that really, then I started kind of looking at it more. I could remove myself and examine his body of work as a fan, ultimately.
Celebrities also added their voices. Elton John called Ozzy one of the bravest men I have ever known. Rod Stewart described him as the last of the true rock gladiators. Sharon Osbourne, unable to speak publicly, simply reposted Jack's tribute with 3 quiet words, "He said it all." If that does not make your heart sink, the line that ended Jack's tribute will. Jack paused for a long moment before saying, "Dad, I will keep the light on for you." A simple sentence, yet it summed up Ozzy's life. A man who wrestled with darkness but still left a glow for others to follow. But the question remains, when your light goes out, will people remember the way you lived, or will they remember the final moment you were here? Looking back, Ozzy's final chapter feels like a story no one could script, from his last electrifying show to the quiet moments of family heartbreak. The journey began with music that filled stadiums and ended with streets lined in silence, a city saying goodbye to one of its own. For fans, Ozzy was more than just a voice or a stage presence. He was proof that you could be flawed, broken, even outrageous, and still inspire millions. His legacy isn't just in the riffs of Paranoid or the anthems of Crazy Train. It's in the people who found courage, joy, or even salvation in his music. To the music world, he was a pioneer who reshaped heavy metal and challenged every boundary the industry tried to set. To his family, he was simply Dad, messy, funny, sometimes stubborn, but fiercely loving. A legend may leave the stage, but the echoes in hearts, streets, and music never die. And maybe that's the lesson. Life isn't measured in perfect moments or polished memories. It's measured in the number of days you get with the people who matter, and what you do with them. How will you remember the man who dared to defy darkness? How will you remember Ozzy Osbourne,